Caring Review, print speaking to the blind, celebrating 40 years of audio newspaper production. Welcome to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast, recorded at the Bishop Briggs Media Centre by our amazing volunteers. You can get in touch with us via Facebook, Twitter or Instagram using @QNReview. That is @CUEANDREVIEW. You can also contact us directly by emailing information@QNreview.com. That is INFORMATION@CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling 0141 772 3976. That's 0141 772 3976.
From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 24th of October, from the news section: Banned biker, 32, jailed for ploughing into pensioner. Report by Grant McCabe. A banned biker who carried out a horror Hogmanay hit and run has been jailed for 28 months. Liam Kerr ploughed into Kathleen Ramsey, 68, close to her home in Glasgow's Cardonald last December 31st. The 32-year-old then fled the scene, leaving the grandmother badly hurt, including suffering a broken leg and pelvis. Kerr was later found, but initially claimed to police he knew nothing about the incident. But DNA from the crash helmet he threw away linked him to the crime. Kerr pleaded guilty to seriously injuring Miss Ramsey by dangerous driving as he appeared in the dock at Glasgow Sheriff Court. Sheriff John McCormick also disqualified Kerr from driving for 8 years, as well as imposing the prison sentence. The court earlier heard that Miss Ramsey had been in a car going to a relative's home when she realised she had left her phone at her house. She got out the car and began crossing the road back. Kerr was also on Moss Park Drive meantime on a Yamaha motorbike, despite being disqualified. Fiscal Jennifer Reid said, "He was driving in an aggressive manner and positioning himself very close to the centre line markings. While in the centre of the road and going at excessive speed, Kerr collided with Kathleen Ramsey. She was knocked to the ground. Kerr slid before coming to a stop beside a parked car. He then got up and ran off. A passerby saw what happened and immediately dialed 999. Miss Ramsey was rushed to hospital. The mum's other injuries saw her suffer fractures to her collarbone and neck, as well as a collapsed lung. The victim needed surgery but was fortunately able to leave the hospital almost 3 weeks later. She continues to be regularly interviewed at a clinic for her pelvic injury. A probe was launched to find the biker. Kerr had been captured on CCTV wearing a white helmet. This was then discovered ditched in a garden outside a house in Cardonald. Kerr's DNA was found on the helmet. He was later arrested, but told officers, "Mate, I do not even know what the F*** you are talking about." The court heard prosecutors accepted Kerr did not know the bike had false number plates. He also admitted in court to driving while disqualified and a charge of failing to report the accident. After the incident, the victim's daughter recalled the harrowing and extremely upsetting time. She stated in one media report, "We say that she is lucky to be here and she believes that the biker could have killed her." And that report was by Grant McCabe. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 24th of October, from the news section: Man in court accused of murder at centre. Report by Lauren Brownlee. A man has appeared in court charged with murder following the death of a man in Hamilton. William Lewis made no plea at Hamilton Sheriff Court yesterday. The 56-year-old is also accused of attempted murder and attempting to defeat the ends of justice. It comes after we reported on Tuesday that a 36-year-old and a 59-year-old man were found with serious injuries within the Burnbank Centre area shortly before 4 p.m. on Monday. The 36-year-old, who police have since named as William Copeland, died at the scene. The other man was rushed to hospital and his condition is unknown. Police cordoned off the area until around midday on Tuesday to carry out an investigation. Forensic officers were scouring the scene. Lewis was remanded in custody and will appear in the dock again within the next 7 days. Meanwhile, tributes have been paid to Mr. Copeland. Councillor Maureen Chalmers said, "Thoughts with the Copeland family. Good to see restrictions lifted around the centre." Another added, "R.I.P. William, you will never be forgotten." Someone else wrote, "May you rest in eternal peace, thinking of your dad, your sisters and the rest of your family." Police Scotland revealed that a strong police presence will remain in the area despite the cordon being removed. Detective Chief Inspector Susie Cairns at Lanarkshire CID said, "Our thoughts are with the families of those concerned as they try to come to terms with what has happened. We will continue to have increased police presence in the area as we understand that this type of incident could be very upsetting and worrying for the people living in this community. Anyone with concerns is asked to speak to these officers. Anyone with any information should contact police via 101 and quote incident number 2095 of October 21st. And that report was written by Lauren Brownlee. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 24th of October, from the news section. Man left his trainer at crime scene. A man who set fire to a car was caught after he left his shoe behind at the scene. Thomas Campbell, also known as Thomas Stilley, 20, torched Ryan Elliott's Audi A5 in Glasgow's Ballarnock on March the 28th, 2023. Glasgow Sheriff Court heard that Campbell started the fire on the sports car around 9 p.m. The blaze was later extinguished by firefighters and the car was later written off. It was deemed that the fire was willful as there were traces of accelerant that was used. Prosecutor Victoria Keel said, "A Nike Air Max trainer and a fuel canister were found close to the fire. Campbell's DNA was present on the trainer and his fingerprints were found in the fuel canister. Campbell was traced to his home where he was arrested. It was stated that Mr. Elliott's insurance paid out £10,000, which went to a new car. However, his insurance premiums have risen. Campbell, of the city's Easter House, pleaded guilty to willful fire raising. The matter was deferred pending background reports until next month by Sheriff Ian Fleming, who granted him bail. The Sheriff said, "Don't misunderstand the position, these are serious matters." And that article was unattributed, and it was read by me, Ian. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 24th of October, from the news section. Pervert abused girl and got her to perform sex acts. Report by Connor Gordon. A pervert sexually abused an 8-year-old girl while they played on an Xbox. John McCann, 41, repeatedly preyed on his victim at various properties. McCann, who suffers from multiple sclerosis, initially got the girl to perform sex acts on him from the age of 5. He then went on to touch the girl and place his body on top of hers while they played on a gaming console on a bed. McCann, of Drumchapel, pleaded guilty at Glasgow Sheriff Court to using lewd, indecent and libidinous practices and behaviour on the girl. McCann also admitted sexually assaulting the girl. The court heard that McCann knew the girl. He first struck when he was alone with the girl, who was 5 years old at the time. Prosecutor Lauren Sangre stated that McCann tickled the girl on the shoulder and neck. He then told her to unbutton his trousers and made reference to a lollipop. McCann made the girl perform a sex act on him 6 to 8 times. The hearing was told that McCann went on to tickle the girl on the body and lay on top of her. McCann also played Xbox with the girl, aged 8, while they were in a bed together. He tickled her again, then placed his body on her while she was face down on the bed. The girl later told adults what had happened to her and McCann was quizzed, but he said he had nothing to hide. He told a social worker that he had sexually abused the girl, which resulted in police involvement. Sentence was deferred pending background reports until next month by Sheriff Ian Fleming. McCann, who uses a walking aid, was remanded in custody and put in the sex offenders register meantime. And that article was written by Connor Gordon. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 24th of October, from the news section. Second driver killed in M6 crash is named. Police have named the second driver in a motorway crash which also cost the lives of 2 adults and 2 children from Glasgow. Richard Woods, 40, from Cambridgeshire, has been identified as the person behind the wheel of a Skoda during the head-on collision. The crash took place on the M6 northbound past Tebay at Cumbria on Tuesday, October 15th. Philip Rossa, 15, and 7-year-old Dominic Rossa from the east end of Glasgow, along with their 42-year-old dad Jaroslav Rossa, were also killed. Earlier this week, Philip and Dominic's mother Camilla paid tribute to intelligent, sensitive and full of love Philip and always smiling, very resolute and sociable Dominic. She said, "We are heartbroken at the passing of our beloved angels, Philip and Dominic." A passenger in their Toyota car, Jade McEnroe, 33, of Kilmore Road, Glasgow, also died at the scene. Her son Aaron, aged 7, who was in the vehicle, was taken to hospital with serious injuries. Cumbria police said yesterday that the youngster remains in hospital, and that article was unattributed, and it was read by me, Ian. From the Glasgow Times, Thursday the 24th of October, from the news section, thousands of Scots set to earn more money. Tens of thousands of Scots are set to receive a cost of living pay boost as the real living wage is set to increase. The real living wage differs from the government's minimum wage rate, often called the national living wage, and is a higher, voluntary rate that is independently calculated based solely on the actual cost of living. More than 68,000 people in Scotland working for more than 3,750 real living wage employers will see their hourly rate rise to £12.60, meaning they will earn £2,262 more per year than the national living wage. Research by the Living Wage Foundation showed that, despite inflation easing, many of those working in Britain's 3.7 million low-paid jobs are still struggling with the impact of years of rising prices causing a cost of living crisis. The research showed 42% of low-paid workers have less than £10 left each week after covering essential expenses, while 39% have used a food bank in the past year and 28% use one at least once a month. Deputy First Minister Kate Forbes said the Scottish Government has welcomed the announcement and that it has championed the real living wage for almost a decade. She said, "After record high living costs over the past 2 years, this will be a welcome boost for thousands of workers across Scotland." The Scottish Government has championed the real living wage since 2015 and we have made it a legal requirement for all organisations receiving grants from a public body to pay the real living wage. This has enabled Scotland to have the highest proportion of workers being paid the real living wage or higher in the UK. The real living wage applies to all workers over the age of 18 working for an employer who pays the rate and is now £12.60 an hour. In comparison, the national living wage applies to those over the age of 21 and is £11.44 an hour. And the article was unattributed. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of October, from the news section, dire state of health centre is slammed. Report by Aidan MacDonald. The chair of Drumchapel Community Council insists the condition of the area's health centre shows the town has been forgotten. It comes after Dr Sandesh Gulhane, regional MSP for Glasgow, raised the dire state of the property with John Swinney at First Minister's Questions 2 weeks ago. The Scottish Conservative and Unionist politician claimed there are issues such as a lack of space, deteriorating building conditions and insufficient resources to meet the community's needs. He invited the First Minister to see how badly the people of Drumchapel are being let down. Gulhane also said the centre is top of the list for replacement accommodation, while areas like Woodside, Maryhill and Parkhead have all benefited from new build health centres in recent years. Andrew Lynch echoed the sentiments of the MSP while also being keen to highlight that the staff are doing their best under difficult circumstances. He said, "It is a tight squeeze when you go into the health centre as it is not in the best condition. Drumchapel deserves a better facility to suit people's needs. The staff are doing their best under immense pressure, but things need to be improved in terms of resources. Members of the community are suffering with their mental and physical health as a result of this service not being as efficient as it could be. We need a new purpose-built health centre that can cater towards those who live here." Andrew insists that the new facility would also need to play in a role in replacing the minor injuries unit that the area lost when Drumchapel Hospital closed in 2016. He continued, if someone in the town sprains their ankle, for example, they have to go to Gartnavel General Hospital, which is not only a distance to travel, but also puts pressure on that service. If a new health centre had a minor injuries unit, it would help on both of these fronts. The current building is past its sell-by date, and we need a new one to keep up with the growing population. Ever since the hospital shut down, it has felt very much like Drumchapel is a forgotten town in terms of healthcare. We have been left behind and need more. An NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde spokesperson said, NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde has a rolling programme of maintenance and replacement for all buildings in its estate. While we continue to provide regular repair and maintenance at our sites, including the Drumchapel Health Centre, the financial challenges that are facing all health boards in Scotland have had an effect on the timing and extent of our capital programmes. Working with local authorities and health and social care partnerships, we will continue to do all we can to provide healthcare facilities that are suitable for the changing needs of the communities. And that report was by Aidan MacDonald. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of October, from the news section, abuser's prison term increased after appeal. A rapist who abused 7 victims over the course of 25 years has had his prison sentence increased. Robert McGeechy, 64, was jailed for 8 years in June after he was found guilty of 17 charges at the High Court in Glasgow. But now, this was increased to 12 years behind bars, following a successful appeal by the Crown. McGeechy's campaign of physical and sexual abuse took place at various addresses, including in Glasgow's East End and South Side areas, between 1978 and 2003. The court heard earlier this year that he sexually abused a young child. He also attacked a teenager, forced a cloth into her mouth and tied her hands behind her back on one occasion. McGeechy later raped a woman and also pressed a knife to her throat. He went on to be repeatedly violent to another woman, which saw her choked, headbutted and a finger gouged into her eye. McGeechy also punched her, bit her ear and held her over a bath. A young child was then belted with a slipper, punched and hit in the head. He slapped another child in the body as well as hit them with a slipper. Kenny Donnelly, Deputy Crown Agent for the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, said, "We are committed to improving the criminal justice journey for victims from the stage of reporting all the way through to sentencing. Prosecutors have a responsibility in legislation to consider appeals based upon undue leniency in sentencing. Such appeals are rare, but important to ensure the public interest is properly served. They allow the court to review sentences that the Crown believe fall outside the range of punishment reasonably considered appropriate. COPFS believes that it is important that the harm caused by sexual offending and the culpability of a convicted person must be consistently reflected in sentencing decisions." And the author of that article is unattributed, and it was read by me, Ian. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of October, from the news section, Dad chased daughter's ex-partner with hammer. This article is an exclusive by Esther Tarnay. An angry dad chased his daughter's ex-boyfriend with a hammer and damaged his car when he came to pick up his things. Jack McCall went to a Pollock address at 2 p.m. on July 15th last year to gather his belongings following a breakup with his girlfriend. In a text, she told him the items would be outside. When Mr. McCall arrived, he heard shouting and swearing from Mark Kendall, his former partner's father. He shouted, "Ball bag, the first chance I get, you're getting it." Mr. McCall continued to collect his things when Kendall appeared with a hammer. The dad walked towards Mr. McCall, who moved back towards his car, but Kendall followed him, swinging the hammer in his direction. Mr. McCall was fearful and kept backing away. Kendall hit the front of his car as well as the headlight with the hammer, causing a dent. He followed Mr. McCall around the car with the weapon, then smashed 2 windows in the vehicle while shouting. After this, Kendall went back to his own property. Mr. McCall finished picking up his belongings, Police were called. Kendall was traced and arrested, to which he replied, "I know, I did it. I don't give a F. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk." The 50-year-old appeared at Glasgow Sheriff Court earlier this week after he pleaded guilty to the offence. The court heard the estimated damage was £1,000. Kendall's solicitor said, "He has never been a poor behaviour. There was a break-up between the man and his daughter. He was very upset about how this man treated his daughter. He was on an emotional roller coaster. This man said he was going to come around with a team of his friends. There was another man there who did not provide a statement. He ought not to behave how he did, and he does accept that. He conveys remorse and regret. He has been married for 19 years and has 3 daughters. He does accept that this is the wrong way to go about things." Sheriff Jonathan Guy told Kendall, "You pleaded guilty at a trial after a trial started, and I watched the video, which set out appalling behaviour on your part. If it wasn't for your age and lack of previous convictions, I would send you to jail. It is also to your credit that you have shown some remorse." Kendall was tagged for 5 months, forcing him to stay at his home between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. He was also ordered to pay £300 compensation to Mr. McCall. And that article was an exclusive by Esther Tarnay. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of October, from the news section, "End is in sight for city centre street closures." Report by Stuart Patterson. A new round of road closures is planned to complete a section of the city centre avenues project. What is expected to be the final round of restrictions to finish work in streets around Sauchiehall Street will take place next month. The end is in sight for residents and businesses in part of the city centre, as long-running work nears completion and some of the streets will be reopened permanently. The avenues project for the west end of Sauchiehall Street pedestrian precinct and surrounding streets is coming to an end and should be open to pedestrians and traffic by Christmas. Between November the 4th and 24th, there will be 3 phases of work, which means roads will be closed. For a week starting on November the 4th, Cambridge Street will be closed between Cowcaddens and Hill Street. Hill Street will be shut at the junction with Cambridge Street, and there will be a 2-way traffic between Cambridge Street and Rose Street. Rose Street will reverse the existing traffic flow, and there will be a 1-way traffic from Renfrew Street to Hill Street. Hilton Access Road and Hill Street East will have 1-way traffic from Renfrew Street to Cambridge Street. The work will transform the streetscape and create priority space for pedestrians and cyclists ahead of private cars. For the following week, November 11th to 18th, Cambridge Street will be closed from Hill Street to Renfrew Street. During the work, some streets and junctions will be reopened permanently. Hill Street will reopen at the junction with Cambridge Street and revert to 1-way from Cambridge Street permanently. Cambridge Street will reopen northbound between Hill Street and Cowcaddens Road. Work will switch to other parts of the city centre next year, around Argyll Street and George Square. The overall city centre avenues project will last another 4 years. Council leader Susan Aitken said, "While many streets will be building sites, it will be worth it for the benefits to people and the investment opportunities it will unlock." From November 18th to 25th, Renfrew Street is to be closed from Rose Street to Cambridge Street. And from November the 25th, Cambridge Street between Renfrew Street and Cowcaddens Road, Hill Street and Hilton Access Road will all revert to 2-way traffic permanently. Rose Street will be 1-way from Hill Street to Renfrew Street. A traffic management system incorporating signed diversion routes will be in operation for the duration of the closures. The council said any businesses that would normally service during the above times are requested to make alternative arrangements where possible. And that article was written by Stuart Patterson. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of October, from the news section, "Freedom of the City Honour for comedy favourite Elaine." Article written by Stuart Patterson. Elaine C. Smith is to be awarded the prestigious honour of Freedom of the City of Glasgow. The actress will be given the accolade to mark the 850th anniversary of Glasgow next year. Smith has been a feature in stage and TV screens for decades, famous for playing Mary in Rab C. Nisbet, and currently christening in Two Doors Down, for which she won a BAFTA Scotland award. She has also won a Royal Television Society award for her series Bird's Eye View. The actress has been a familiar presence on stage in Glasgow, starring in The Steamy, and is a regular in pantos, delighting generations of Glaswegians. She also starred as Susan Boyle in I Dreamed a Dream, a musical that she co-wrote. Her charity and campaigning work has also been highlighted, particularly her work of supporting ending violence against women. Smith was born in Baillieston and trained at the RSAMD in Glasgow before embarking on her successful career. Elaine C. Smith said, "I cannot tell you how thrilled and truly moved I am. To be awarded the Freedom of the City of Glasgow during its 850th birthday celebrations make it even more special. I have been fortunate to have been put forward for a few honours in my life, but none would fill my heart or mean more than being awarded the freedom of this city, my home, and the place I love. I cannot thank Glasgow City Council enough for even considering me for this honour." Jacqueline McLaren, the Lord Provost, said, "I'm delighted Elaine C. Smith intends to accept Glasgow's highest honour, the freedom of the city." A much-loved comedy actress who demonstrates perfectly Glaswegian sensibilities of fun underpinned by straight talking. "I'm excited at the prospect of presenting this award to Elaine and acknowledging her stellar achievements entertaining the nation." Previous recipients of the Freedom of the City include Kenny Dalglish, Alex Ferguson, Jim Watt and Billy Connolly. The Freedom of the City is given to persons of distinction or persons who have rendered eminent service to the city. While normally reserved for citizens of Glasgow, it was famously awarded to Nelson Mandela in 1981 as part of the city's role in the anti-apartheid movement. Mandela then accepted the honour in person in 1993 when he visited following his release from prison. Freedom of the City allows holders to graze their cows on Glasgow Green and the right to fishing on the Clyde. However, they also have the duty to patrol and guard the town, and if they do not perform this duty, they could be prosecuted for perjury of their oath. If they were to be prosecuted, they have the right to a prison cell of their own. They also have the duty to pay the equivalent of today's valuation tax, and the right to be present at all court hearings. And that report was by Stuart Patterson. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday 26th of October, news. Rock band announced 2 gigs at Barrowland. The Manic Street Preachers have announced 2 shows at the Barrowland next year. The Welsh rock band will perform at the venue on April the 11th and 12th. It comes as the band have released their new single Hiding in Plain Sight and announced a new album, Critical Thinking, which is due to be released in January next year. The Barrowland shows are part of their 2025 UK headline tour. Tickets will go on sale at 9:30am on Friday, November the 1st. And that article was unattributed. From the Glasgow Times, Saturday the 26th of October, from the news section. Rock band to perform. Primal Scream have announced they are coming to Glasgow on their new tour ahead of the release of their 12th studio album, Come Ahead. The 2025 tour will see the Scottish band, who were formed in Glasgow and made their name with their third album in 1991, Screamadelica, play at the O2 Academy on Friday the 4th and Saturday the 5th of April. The band will be supported by Baxter Jury. It comes ahead of the band's latest album being released on November the 8th, with 4 tracks from the album already out. Pre-sale tickets for the tour will go on sale on October 30th at 10am, ahead of a general sale at 10am on November the 1st. The band, fronted by Bobby Gillespie, formed in 1982 and are best known for their albums Exterminator, 2000, Give Out But Don't Give Up, 1994, and Screamadelica, which smeared rock and roll with acid house. The article was unattributed and it was read by me, Ian McKenna.
Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of October. Concern over the number of whistleblowing cases investigated by the council. An article written by Catherine Hunter. Concerns over the high levels of whistleblowing cases being investigated by Glasgow City Council have been raised by a local councillor. A report presented to members of the Finance and Audit Scrutiny Committee revealed that during the first 6 months of 2024-2025, there were 119 whistleblowing referrals logged, compared with 129 in the same period in 2023-2024. Complaints made included theft or embezzlement, corruption or abuse of power, and possible tenancy fraud. The report highlighted how there were 30 complaints made against staff and services in 2024-2025, compared to just over 20 in the previous year. During the most recent scrutiny meeting, Labour councillor Jill Brown raised concerns about the number of complaints made which are being upheld. Councillor Brown said, when it comes to whistleblowing, there are still 30% of referrals which are leading to a suggestion that an issue has been appropriately identified. That does seem like a high level. What would be the target level that you would expect if everything was operating as appropriate? A council officer responded, in terms of the whistleblowing, the unfounded rate is historically lower than that. If anything, the number of founded whistleblowing allegations compared to unfounded has shifted a little bit. I'm always challenging myself to see if we're making the best use of resources, investigating 45 unfounded whistleblowing allegations, as some of these can be quite time-consuming. But I would agree that there is a relatively large number in there that show it is worthwhile continuing the approach that we have. An article written by Catherine Hunter. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of October. Glasgow Life appoints a new head of museums and collections. An article written by Craig Williams and read by Howell. Jane Rowlands has been appointed as the head of museums and collections for Glasgow Life. Jane has spent more than 20 years with Glasgow's museums and has been acting head of museums and collections for Glasgow Life since August. The appointment comes after an extensive recruitment and interview process following the retirement of Duncan Dornan, Glasgow Life said. Jane Rowlands has managed almost every aspect of Glasgow's museum service and has been involved in the delivery of projects and programmes, including the refurbishment of Kelvin Grove Art Gallery and Museum, Phase 2 of the Glasgow Museum Resource Centre, the Riverside Museum project, the reimagining of Kelvin Hall and the Burrell Collection. She's currently leading the museum's work for the refurbishment of the People's Palace. She studied English and art at Canterbury Christ Church University and then achieved an MA in conservation in London before joining Glasgow's museums in the year 2000, working on the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery and Museum project. She's held positions across collections and conservation management, led or contributed to several research projects, and as a senior museums manager since 2011, she's supported previous heads of museums and collections. She said, "The once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to lead Glasgow's civic museum service is very exciting. No other museum service is as deeply associated with the culture of the city they serve. I'm committed to increasing accessibility and engagement with our collections and supporting Glasgow Life's charitable aims of improving people's happiness, health and wealth. I'm honoured to be given the chance to expand the influence and reach of Glasgow Life museums, continuing to work with colleagues who are wonderfully talented and have unmatched expertise." Bailey Garrett, Director of Culture, Tourism and Events at Glasgow Life, said, "Jane Rowlands has been with Glasgow's museums for more than 23 years and has been at the heart of all their fantastic work in that time. No one knows Glasgow's museums better than Jane, and she'll be a brilliant leader as one of the most passionate and knowledgeable advocates of the power that culture has to change lives. Jane will ensure that the link between the people of Glasgow and their museums will grow stronger still by making these special places and the fantastic collection more popular than ever." An article written by Craig Williams. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of October. Housing hopes dashed for historic building. An exclusive front page article written by Stuart Patterson. Hopes that a decaying and dilapidated historic building could be saved and turned into social housing have been dashed. Whitinch Borough Hall has been vacant for decades and stands as an eyesore and a concern to the people who live beside it. Whitinge and Scotstoun Housing Association had looked into the possibility of it being turned into flats. A councillor for the area, however, confirmed that they are unable to take it further due to the estimated cost, and the search for a potential developer goes on. Such is the state of the building and the costs of redevelopment being high, he said that they are unable to consider it. Eunice Jasemi, Labour councillor for Victoria Park, said it was disappointing news. Nearby residents are worried about damage from the hall to the tenements beside it. Nancy Kelly, a resident who lives beside the building, thanked the councillor for his efforts to find a solution to restoring the hall. She said, after living here for over 6 years, conditions have only got worse. Damp in adjoining properties, rat infestations, and now a mess of weeds and debris since the railings went up last year. Years of council neglect have made the building unusable and pose serious concerns, especially given Glasgow's history with fires. Immediate action is needed to clean up, but we also need a plan for the long-term future of this site. The Labour councillor thanked the Housing Association for exploring the possibility of housing on the site. Mr Jasemi said, "I'm saddened that Whitinge and Scotstoun Housing Association will not be able to develop the Whitinge Borough Hall site due to the current economic climate. The state of Whitinge Borough Hall has been a long-standing concern for residents, and I'm fully committed to its restoration and securing its future as a valuable space for the people of Whitinge. When I launched my campaign to save the Borough Hall, I promised to explore every avenue for a solution, and my commitment remains unchanged. I will keep working towards a long-term outcome that benefits the community." The councillor said that housing is still a preferred option for the transformation of the building. He added, "There is clear demand for housing in Whitinge. With new independent businesses thriving and Victoria Park nearby, the area is increasingly desirable, making it an ideal spot for future housing. I've already engaged with housing associations and various stakeholders and will be meeting with interested parties in the coming days to ensure any solution meets local needs and delivers long-term value." He added that he would be meeting with City Property to discuss a way forward and said he would be asking for it to be maintained to ensure that it is safe for the community in the meantime. An exclusive front-page article written by Stuart Patterson. Glasgow Times on Monday the 28th of October. Lifestyle. Father and daughter visit 108 parks and green spaces in Glasgow. An exclusive article written by Ava White. An adventurous father and daughter have revealed why they spent 2 years exploring Glasgow from top to bottom. Scott Nicholson and his 6-year-old daughter Emma, who live in Partick Hill, completed their journey to go to 108 parks and green spaces across the city last week, after undertaking the challenge in July 2022. Scott explained that the idea came about as the duo were at a loose end when all of Emma's clubs were off over the summer. The 39-year-old said, "We'd been going to cinemas and farm parks, but I was spending a fortune. One day we were in Kings Park and we had a great time, so I decided to look online and found a document listing 108 Glasgow parks and green spaces. I thought we could make a thing of this, and we decided to start ticking all of them off. It was almost every weekend that we'd do it. It was a lot of exploring the city, top to bottom, finding places and seeing the variety between the grand old parks and the smaller ones, some of which are quite run down. You never knew what you were going to get. I moved to Glasgow 9 years ago, and it was great to get around the city and go to places I'd never been before." Emma was 4 when this started, and now she's 6. She's been everywhere in the city. It's been great. The father-daughter duo documented each of their trips on social media, highlighting what stood out for them, what surprised them, and which spaces they enjoyed the most. After completing the list from the document last week, Scott said he and Emma sat down and made their own top 3 list. Number 1 was Pollock Country Park, followed by Tollcross Park and Queen's Park. Scott expanded on how they reached their final decision. He added, "I've documented our progress as we were going along on Facebook with photos of each place and the countdown to us completing it. Last week I scrolled through the pictures with Emma and she told me which one she liked the most. For her, I think it was the ones where there's something extra to do. So at Tollcross Park, they've got a little animal park there. At Pollock, they've got the Burrell Collection, and at Victoria Park, there is the Fossil Grove. There were also odd ones that really grabbed us. Cathkin Park used to be a 50,000-seat football stadium, and the trees have grown through it. It's such a valuable time that I've spent with Emma. She's at an age where she wants to spend time with me. All the time that we are out, we're talking about things we see and things that pop into her head. It's been lovely. Scott and Emma added a further challenge into the mix with the additional goal of visiting each of the city's council-run libraries and swimming pools. They ticked off all 32 libraries when Elder Park Library reopened in June this year, and all 12 swimming pools with the reopening of Drumchapel Pool in August. Scott told of the value he feels that green spaces provide in cities. He commented, "It's so important to have these spaces so children have somewhere to play and see nature. There is the cost of living crisis too. It's so expensive for families to do things nowadays, and these all add up. They are great resources with so much history." An exclusive article written by Eva White. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of October. Police search for the driver who fled the scene of a fatal incident. An article written by Rebecca Newlands. Police are searching for a driver who fled the scene of a collision that killed a 70-year-old man in South Lanarkshire yesterday. The pedestrian was struck by a small black car, which officers said could be a Mercedes A-Class, on Quarry Street in Hamilton at around 12:40 a.m. He was pronounced dead at the scene by emergency services. Police Scotland issued a public appeal to help find the driver. Sergeant John Houston said, "Our thoughts at this time are with the family and friends of the man who died. Extensive inquiries are ongoing to trace the car involved and its occupants as soon as possible. I urge anyone who was in the area of Quarry Street on Sunday morning around the time of the crash, who either witnessed the crash take place or who has any information on the car involved, to contact us. Anyone with dashcam or personal footage is asked to review it, and please get in touch if it contains anything relevant to our investigation. If you have any information that could help, please contact 101, quoting reference number 0171 of October the 27th. An article written by Rebecca Newlands. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of October. Nearly 7,600 sexual crimes reported to Police Scotland over 6 months. An article written by Ben Waddell. A new police campaign encouraging young men to have a quiet word with a mate if they see them acting inappropriately towards women has been launched. The Police Scotland That Guy campaign, which will run for 6 weeks across social media channels and through a podcast series, comes amidst a rise in the number of sexual offences being reported to officers. The force said that they had received nearly 7,600 reports of sexual crimes between April the 1st and the end of September, a 3.2% increase compared with the same period the year before. This figure includes 1,400 reported rapes, a rise of 19.5% on the same period the year before. Some 1,829 of the reported offences, including 550 of the rapes, were alleged to have happened more than a year ago, with the remainder relating to the last 12 months. Assistant Chief Constable Steve Johnson, lead for Major Crime and Public Protection at Police Scotland, said, "My hope is that increased reporting indicates increased confidence in victims coming forward as we work with partners to improve our response to reports of sexual crimes, which have a devastating impact on victims. Women and girls should be able to live their lives free from all forms of violence, abuse, harassment and exploitation. We want to prevent sexual crime by tackling behaviours that demean, minimise and brutalise women. Prevention sits with all of us, but men need to take responsibility for their behaviour and stop sexual offending before it starts." The latest That Guy campaign is aimed at men aged between 18 and 35 and is designed to encourage them to reflect on their behaviour towards women as well as that of friends and relatives. ACC Johnston continued, "As a father, I hope I've brought my sons up to respect women and not to be that guy who stands by and says nothing when a mate acts in an abusive way or doesn't take no for an answer. No men want the women in their lives to be a victim of sexual offending, just as we don't want a friend to end up on the register or in prison for sexual crimes. All men need to consider the impact of their behaviour on women, but equally have a quiet word with a mate to prevent them doing something they really will regret." The That Guy podcast is hosted by writer and broadcaster Alistair Heather, who appeared in the 2022 That Guy video advert. It features 5 episodes of frank conversations about the attitudes and behaviours that put women at risk of sexual violence and men at risk of offending. It will see Mr. Heather exploring topics like football, social media and relationships to learn how men can make a positive difference by speaking up and stepping in. An article written by Ben Waddell. Glasgow Times on Monday the 28th of October. Opinion. Invest in community care and ditch the flawed bill. A column written by Mike Daly. Earlier this month, the Scottish Parliament's Health Committee heard how £28 million had been spent on work related to the National Care Service Bill. Much of this cost included private consultancy fees in developing a new Quango infrastructure to deliver the service. Was this a good use of public money? Putting the cash on a bonfire would at least have generated some heat, because so far we have a pointless, useless and botched bill. Scotland's local authorities and COSLA, the body which represents them collectively, walked away from the bill this month and no longer support it, as have the trade unions who represent the care workers. Presumably the only supporters of the bill are the Scottish Government and folk hoping to secure a remunerated gig in Quango Scot O land. Karen Hedge, Deputy Chief Executive of Scottish Care, advised the Health Committee that 1 million hours of social care could have been funded with the £28 million spent so far on the National Care Service. Ministers rebuffed calls to ditch their flagship policy. If the bill was a flagship, it had all the attributes of Scotland's delayed ferries. The new National Quango isn't expected for another 4 or 5 years, at a cost that no one really knows, with estimates from £500 million to £2 billion. Most of this spending is to create unelected boards, as opposed to giving people more care or paying workers better wages. It's worth reminding ourselves that the National Care Service was a pledge in the SNP's manifesto for the 2021 Holyrood election. 3 years on, we are no further forward, and social care services have arguably declined with a reduction in funding. Rachel Cackett of the Coalition of Care and Support Providers in Scotland told the Health Committee, "We have people who are struggling to keep services going, and we have 6,000 people waiting for a social care assessment and more than 3,000 not getting the care that they are assessed as needing." I was writing about the National Care Service in this column 3 years ago, and my assessment then was it was ostensibly a power grab from local government. The Scottish Government did this with the police and the fire service. That's the problem with Holyrood. It's become a centralising power magnet. First Minister John Swinney said that the National Care Service is the most effective way of improving care services across the country. I disagree. Scottish ministers could raise care standards uniformly across Scotland right now by issuing statutory guidance or directions to local councils in the exercise of their social care functions. They have the power to do so under Section 5 of the 1968 Social Work Scotland Act. The fact is, we don't need a National Care Service bill. We need investment in local government. We could easily use a fraction of the money earmarked for the bill to invest in social care services and implement the 2021 manifesto promise to abolish charging people for community care so that they can lead an independent life. A column written by Mike Daly. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of October. Plans to introduce care charges in East Renfrewshire. An article written by Gillian Macpherson. Plans have been revealed to introduce means-tested charges for non-residential care in East Renfrewshire amid unprecedented financial pressures. Non-residential care is currently free and includes services like meal preparation, charges for meals, day opportunities, building and community-based services such as community pathways and care-at-home services that the local authority can charge for via the Health and Social Care Partnership. Non-residential care also includes personal care, which by law cannot be charged for by councils, and includes activities such as help with washing and eating. No decision has yet been made on the plans, but if approved by the council, it's intended that the charges will be introduced from next April. A spokesperson for East Renfrewshire Health and Social Care Partnership, which is a partnership between the council and the NHS, said, "The partnership is facing unprecedented financial pressures and has had to make a host of difficult decisions in order to bridge the £11.8 million gap in our budget for 2024-2025. Looking to 2025-2026, we know things aren't going to get any easier. We've always worked hard to avoid introducing charging for non-residential care, which is why we are the only health and social care partnership in Greater Glasgow and Clyde that does not currently do so. But regrettably, our financial position means that we've had to consider all options." At present, the Health and Social Care Partnership's projected costs for the year are £1.7 million more than the budget. Looking at 2025-2026, due to population demand, demographics and pay and contractual inflation, cost pressures are expected to range from £3.5 million to £7 million, depending on a range of scenarios. The partnership will need to find further savings to offset these potential costs, subject to any impacts from the budget settlement for 2025-2026. The decision to consider introducing charging for non-residential care came from an income generation short life working group, which was set up at the request of the East Renfrewshire Integration Joint Board in April 2023. The board is a separate legal body and is the main decision-making body for all health and social care in East Renfrewshire. It has the responsibility for planning and monitoring community health and social care services. Senior officers and board members sit on this working group, and according to the Health and Social Care Partnership, they considered a range of options. Following information sessions, a report will now be drafted and put to the Cabinet of East Renfrewshire Council in December. An article written by Gillian Macpherson. Glasgow Times, Politics, on Monday the 28th of October. Scottish Greens withdraw support for the National Care Service Bill. An article written by Jodie Harrison. The Scottish Greens have withdrawn their support for the Scottish Government's National Care Service Bill. Members overwhelmingly voted for a motion against the plans at the party's conference in Greenock yesterday. The decision means that the minority SNP administration, which relies on opposition MSPs to pass legislation, will likely fail to pass the bill. Yesterday's motion, proposed by Glasgow councillor Anthony Carroll and the party's health spokesperson Gillian Mackay MSP, called for the bill to be radically reduced in scope to focus on increasing support and rights to those providing care. Ms Mackay said, "The National Care Service Bill is not fit for purpose and has lost the support of trade unions and other key stakeholders. There are some positives within the bill that I hope MSPs from all parties would want to see enacted. For example, giving people living in care homes the right to see and spend time with loved ones, greater support for carers to take personalised respite breaks, and greater access to advocacy and information. The government must radically rethink and reduce the scope of this bill. That means focusing on increasing support and rights to those providing care, including unpaid carers. Without the fundamental change and shift in focus, we cannot support it." Labour, the Tories and the Liberal Democrats have also said that they would not back the bill. The legislation aims to centralise adult social care and social work delivered by local authorities into a single body accountable to ministers. Scotland's Finance Secretary, Shona Robeson, said that she still wants to go ahead with the plans while finding common ground amongst MSPs. She added, "It's hard to see how anyone could disagree about wanting to have national standards so that people in one part of Scotland receive the same quality of service as another." An article written by Jodie Harrison. Glasgow Times News on Monday the 28th of October. The Court of Session is to hear Scottish pensioners' bid to overturn the winter fuel payment cut. An article written by Andrew Learmonth. 2 Scottish pensioners have been given permission to proceed with a legal bid to overturn the UK government's winter fuel payment cut. Peter and Florence Fanning from Coatbridge in North Lanarkshire raised proceedings with the help of the Alba Party and the Govan Law Centre against the Scottish and the UK governments. The judicial review required a judge's approval to move to a hearing on the merits. That's now happened, and a hearing at the Court of Session in Edinburgh is now scheduled for the 15th of January. The Chancellor announced back in July that she would restrict the annual payout in England and Wales to those on pension credit or certain other benefits as part of her plan to tackle a £22 billion black hole in the public finances. According to ministers in Edinburgh, the decision to block the annual winter fuel payment of either £200 or £300, depending on age, left them with a £160 million funding shortfall for their own equivalent devolved benefit, forcing them to follow suit. The Scottish Government's analysis says that means around 900,000 Scottish pensioners will lose out, with just 130,000 receiving the payment. Across the UK, some 10 million pensioners will be affected. The Fannings and Govan Law Centre argued that Liz Kendall, the Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, failed to carry out an equality impact assessment in accordance with her duties in the 2010 Equality Act. They also said that she failed to consult with those of pensionable age. A spokesperson for Govan Law Centre said, "Our clients are delighted that the court has granted permission for their judicial review challenge to proceed to a full hearing in early January. We await a decision on civil legal aid from the Scottish Legal Aid Board early next week in relation to the proceedings. If civil legal aid is granted, we will then submit an urgent application for sanction for the employment of both junior and senior counsel and will announce our final legal team in early course." The late former First Minister Alex Salmond was instrumental in connecting the Fannings with Govan Law Centre and was an early supporter of their legal challenge. The Alba leader died suddenly earlier this month at a conference in North Macedonia. Commenting, the Alba Party acting leader, Kenny McCaskill, said, "The Alba Party very much welcomes this decision. Alex Salmond was a champion of this campaign and had been fully supportive of the Fannings in their case versus the Scottish and the UK governments. The Scottish Government should have been standing up for Scotland's pensioners against Westminster cuts. Instead, they will now be standing shoulder to shoulder with the UK Labour Government in court against the pensioners of Scotland." An article written by Andrew Learmonth.
From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday the 29th of October 2024, from the news section. Desperate search for 80-year-old last seen on Glasgow bus. And this article was written by Ben Waddle. A desperate search is underway for a missing 80-year-old man who was last seen on a Glasgow bus service. Police are currently searching for Wong Ho, who has been reported missing from the city. Officers say he was last seen on the Springburn Road area at 6:20 p.m. on Monday, October the 28th, on the 89 First Bus service. It is understood he left the bus at the stop near 1378 Springburn Road and carried on walking, heading south. He's described as being around 5 foot 5 inches tall and of slim build. Cops say he was last seen wearing a burgundy hat and a black raincoat. Sergeant Menzies at Maryhill Police said, "We are growing increasingly concerned for the welfare of Wong and would ask if anyone knows his whereabouts to contact us as soon as possible. We would appeal to anyone who was in the area to check dashcam footage or private CCTV for any sightings of Wong. Anyone who has information on his whereabouts is asked to contact Police Scotland on 101 quoting 3367 of October the 28th, 2024. And that article was by Ben Waddle. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday the 29th of October 2024. From the news section. Man who threatened rail staff and refused to buy tickets. And this article was written by Tristan Stewart Robertson. A man who threatened 2 train staff must stay at home every night for the next 4 months, a court has ordered. Anthony Stewart appeared at Dumbarton Sheriff Court over a number of cases stretching between 2021 and 2024 in both Clydebank and Dumbarton. The 38-year-old's own defence solicitor accepted there were a whole host of matters. He said his client had faced difficulties in his life and was engaging with a variety of agencies. But a sheriff said the public needed respite from his behaviour. Stewart, listed in past court papers as living in Peelview, Clydebank and Halkett Avenue, Dumbarton, previously admitted having a knife in West Court, Clydebank in September 2021. On March the 16th, 2023, on a train between Dalmuir and Bowling, he refused to buy a ticket, shouted, swore, and repeatedly uttered threats of violence towards 2 members of staff. He lunged at the male one. He was on bail from 2022. Then, in May 2023, in Bontyne Avenue, Dumbarton, he had a knife. And in August this year, he broke a court order not to be in the company of a woman by being with her in Alexandria. The court was told Stewart had breached a supervised release order after previously being jailed in May 2023. Sheriff Maxwell Hendry said it left him with limited options. But the sheriff accepted he had seen the accused in a pretty bad condition in the past. To say you present a challenge to the court would be a vast understatement, said Sheriff Hendry. The easy option is to lock you up for as long as possible. The maximum sentence available today is 8 years. A very large part of my brain is saying 3 to 4 years, if only to give the public some respite from your behaviour. Instead, the sheriff made no further order on the breach of supervised release, meaning Stewart would not return to jail. On the rail incident, from March 2023, he was put on a community payback order as a direct alternative to custody. He will be supervised by social workers for 18 months and must take treatment or counselling for substances as directed. And he will be electronically tagged and under curfew for 4 months from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. daily. A review will be heard on November the 29th, and the sheriff said, you either comply with this order or you go to prison. And that article was by Tristan Stewart Robertson, recorded by me, Caroline. From the Glasgow Times on Tuesday the 29th of October 2024, from the news section. Zombies did iconic dance in Glasgow to protest climate chaos. And this article was written by Kirsty Feerick. Zombies did an iconic dance in Glasgow to protest climate chaos. Extinction Rebellion Scotland targeted insurance companies in the city centre this morning. Kicking off outside the Howden Group, members dressed up as the undead while performing Michael Jackson's Thriller dance to demand that new fossil fuel projects be halted. Activists also held banners and placards saying, "Stop insuring climate criminals," "Boycott Howden," and "Don't insure EACOP," East Africa Crude Oil Pipeline. The action is part of Extinction Rebellion's major campaign, Ensure Our Survival. The campaign calls on the insurance industry to stop underwriting all new oil, gas and coal projects. The campaign will hold protests and actions across the UK, both in cities and towns. Major insurance companies with offices in Glasgow have yet to rule out new fossil fuel projects, including Howden Group. Extinction Rebellion Scotland activists will present letters asking Howden Group and other brokers or insurers of new fossil fuel projects to publicly announce an immediate, complete and permanent withdrawal from brokering, insuring, reinsuring or underwriting all new oil, gas and coal projects. In February, thousands of activists in tandem with global campaign coalition Ensure Our Future staged a week-long series of actions across the world, including in Glasgow. The campaign has had some successes, with giant global insurer Zurich announcing that it would no longer insure new oil and gas projects. In the past week, Generali, which ranks among the top 20 insurers globally, became the first major insurer to cut ties with transition laggards in the fossil fuel industry. Murdoch Wilson, retired NHS manager and spokesperson for XR Glasgow, said, "Insurance companies are taking massive hits to their profits due to extreme weather events caused by global warming. But instead of turning off the tap of carbon pollution by stopping insuring coal, gas and oil projects, they are increasing their prices for ordinary families and refusing to insure, in some areas, most at risk of fires and floods. This is deeply unfair, and the big polluters responsible for the extreme weather events should pay for the clean-up." Robbie Kelly, 66, production editor and spokesperson for XR Dundee, said that climate change is contributing to the severity and frequency of weather events like extreme heat, storms and flooding is unquestionable. The insurance industry is already facing marked increases in the number of claims by homeowners. Everything is getting more expensive, so repairs and replacements will cost insurers more to cover. Even at a local level, the damage caused by these weather events will mean we will all see increases in premiums, even for properties that aren't directly affected. It's insane that this industry should be enabling the oil and gas companies that are driving climate breakdown. And this article was written by Kirsty Fierick.
From Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 29th of October. From the lifestyle section, Glasgow roads to be closed for Christmas lights switch on. This article was written by Ben Waddle. Several Glasgow city centre roads will be closed to allow this year's Christmas lights switch on to take place next month. The annual event takes place on George Square each year, marking the beginning of the festive celebrations in the city. At the Merchant City and Trongate Community Council meeting on Tuesday, September 24th, it was revealed that Glasgow Life has submitted a licensing request to Glasgow City Council for this year's event on Sunday, November 17th. A spokesperson for Glasgow Life confirmed it will take place on this date. Ahead of the festive event, Glasgow City Council has revealed multiple road closures will be in place before, during and after it. Restrictions will also be in place on several roads. Here are all the road restrictions and closures that will be in place for the lights switch on. Prohibition of vehicle movements from 4 p.m. until 11:59 p.m. on November 19th. George Square, South Park for its whole length. South Frederick Street, northbound between Ingram Street and George Square. Prohibition of vehicle movements from 6 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. on November 17th. Anchor Lane for its whole length. Cochrane Street for its whole length. Dundas Lane for its whole length. Dundas Street between West George Street and Dundas Lane. George Square for its whole length, all sides. George Street between George Square and Albion Street. Hanover Street for its whole length. John Street for its whole length. Martha Street for its whole length. Montrose Street between access to the NCP car park and Ingram Street. Nelson Mandela Place for its whole length. North Frederick Street for its whole length. North Hanover Street between George Square and Cathedral Street. Queen Street between Ingram Street and St Vincent Place. South Frederick Street for its whole length. St Vincent Place for its whole length. West George Street between West Nile Street and George Square. Prohibition of waiting, loading or unloading from 3 p.m. on November 16th until 11:59 p.m. on November 17th on Anchor Street for its whole length. Cochrane Street for its whole length, Dundas Lane for its whole length, Dundas Street between West George Street and Dundas Lane, George Square for its whole length, all sides, George Street between George Square and Albion Street, Hanover Street for its whole length, John Street for its whole length, Martha Street for its whole length, Montrose Street between access to NCP car park and Ingram Street, Nelson Mandela Place for its whole length, North Frederick Street for its whole length, North Hanover Street between George Square and Cathedral Street, Queen Street between Ingram Street and St Vincent Place, South Frederick Street for its whole length, St Vincent Place for its whole length, West George Street between West Nile Street and George Square. The road restrictions will be in place for the safety of those at the event and road users. And that article was written by Ben Waddle. From Glasgow Times, Tuesday the 29th of October. From the lifestyle section, new Spanish steakhouse to open near Glasgow as part of special concept. This article is written by Sandhya Suresh. A popular Glasgow-based restaurant group has announced a new Spanish steakhouse and wine bar as part of a charity initiative. Six Company, which owns the 6 by Nico restaurants, has revealed plans for Bamboleo, a new venture that will replace Beat 6 in Bearsden. It aims to raise £2 million for Beats and Cancer charity. Bamboleo, which will open on November 8th, will offer an a la carte menu with a selection of tapas, starters, mains and desserts, as well as a Gallican Sunday roast menu. There will also be a specially curated wine list with Spanish and world wines. The 48-seat restaurant at 149 Mulgai Road will have a distinctive private dining area on the mezzanine level for gatherings, events and fundraising dinners. Nico Simone, chief executive and founder of Six Company, said, "I am very much looking forward to the next steps for us with our fundraising efforts for Beats and Cancer charity with the opening of Bamboleo. We are very lucky to be in the position that we can have such a concept, and I am so excited for the future." All profits from the restaurant will go to Beats and Cancer charity, which supports cancer patients and their families treated at the Beatson West of Scotland Cancer Centre. Gillian Hailstones, Chief Executive Officer of Beats and Cancer charity, said, "We're thrilled to continue our partnership with Six Company and expand our mission through the launch of Bamboleo. Following the remarkable success of Beat 6, we're excited to see Bamboleo open its doors, creating a new opportunity for the community to support those affected by cancer in a truly special way. Every meal enjoyed at Bamboleo helps provide essential support to cancer patients and their families, and we're incredibly grateful for the continued commitment of Nico and his team." And again, that article was written by Sandhya Suresh.
This is from the Glasgow Times on the 30th of October 2024, from the news section, and the headline reads, "Dad owes life to quick-thinking wife who spotted vital signs." This article was by Kirsty Feerick. A dad owes his life to his quick-thinking wife who spotted vital signs. Archie Strachan was saved by his partner Karen when he suffered a stroke at home in Bishopton. The 65-year-old was in bed when he suddenly dropped his coffee as his arm became weak and he struggled to speak while his face had dropped. Karen, a long-time A&E nurse, spotted the symptoms and knew time was crucial as she had to get her husband to a hospital as soon as possible. Fortunately, he was able to be seen quickly at Glasgow's Queen Elizabeth University Hospital. Now, he has made a strong recovery, but still feels the hangover from the stroke. Archie explained, "I know how lucky I am to have made the recovery I have. I saw other people in the stroke ward and know things could have been different. I owe everything to Karen for how quickly she reacted, and for the brilliant nurses and doctors who did so much for me. Physically, I am feeling no ill effects, but psychologically there's a hangover. I still replay what happened every time I make a cup of coffee in the morning, or I'm driving to see students. I can't help thinking about what might have happened if I'd been behind the wheel when I had a stroke rather than in my own bed. But I'm getting there, and I'm just glad to still be here." Archie had a stroke in September 2022 when Karen called 999 and the emergency operator talked her through the FAST test. FAST is a mnemonic that stands for F, face, A, arm, S, speech, T, time. It illustrates 3 of the common signs of stroke and highlights the importance of acting quickly to call emergency services. Catching these signs got Archie help quickly with a vital scan at Queen Elizabeth University Hospital confirming he had a stroke. Then, within an hour of the stroke, doctors had administered clot-busting drugs known as thrombolysis, which aims to dissolve the blood clot that had caused it. Archie has now returned to his role as a visiting lecturer in social care with the charity Quarriers. He and Karen are also doing the legendary 95-mile hike in weekly sections, and he intends to complete the hike again next year, this time raising vital funds for Chest, Heart and Stroke Scotland. Chest, Heart and Stroke Scotland and the Scottish Ambulance Service have now launched a new FAST campaign at Glasgow Central Station to highlight the awareness of stroke signs and symptoms and encourage fast action when contacting emergency services. According to local health board data, 2,526 people in the Greater Glasgow and Clyde area had a stroke last year. YouGov polling commissioned by the charity revealed that 39% of adults in Scotland were not familiar with FAST. This number rises significantly for younger adults aged 18 to 24, as more than half were not familiar with FAST. The public awareness campaign is aimed at increasing the correct identification of stroke symptoms and assessment for hyperacute stroke treatments for those who require them. This article is by Kirsty Feedick. This is from the Glasgow Times on the 30th of October 2024 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Glasgow road closed after woman dies in housing estate." This article is by Ben Waddle. 2 Glasgow roads have been closed after a woman died following being found with serious injuries in a city centre housing estate. Police taped off multiple blocks of flats near Dobby's Lone Place and St Mungo Avenue in the city's town head area on Tuesday, October 29th. Officers revealed they were called to a report of an alleged disturbance in the area shortly before 1 p.m. On arrival at the scene, emergency crews found a woman who was seriously injured. Sadly, she was pronounced dead a short time later. Due to the incident, Glasgow City Council has now revealed 2 roads in the area have been shut while police carry out investigation work. St James Road has been closed from Stirling Road to St Mungo Avenue, while St Mungo Avenue has been shut from Grafton Place to Taylor Place. The local authority is urging drivers to avoid the area and seek an alternative route. They also said further information will be released when available. Yesterday, we reported how the force said the death was being treated as unexplained. In an image shared with the Glasgow Times on Tuesday, several ambulances were pictured on the scene before a huge cordon was erected in the area. Meanwhile, cops were spotted standing guard at the scene, which spans the flats on St Mungo Avenue, the St Mungo Avenue playground, and the Dobby's Lone Place high-rise flats nearby. A large patch of grass near the town-ahead shops had also been sealed off, and detectives were spotted carrying out investigations. Following the incident, police revealed an investigation is underway. A spokesperson for Police Scotland previously said, We were called around 12:55 p.m. on Tuesday, October 29th, to a report of a disturbance in the St Mungo Avenue area of Glasgow. Emergency services attended and a woman was found seriously injured. She was pronounced dead a short time later. Officers remain at the scene. The death is being treated as unexplained and inquiries are ongoing to establish the full circumstances. A spokesperson for the Scottish Ambulance Service added, "We received a call at 12:55 p.m. on Tuesday, October 29th, to attend an incident on St Mungo Avenue in Glasgow, and we dispatched several resources to the scene." Meanwhile, a Glasgow City Council spokesperson said, "Due to an ongoing police incident, the following road closures are currently in place to assist Police Scotland with their investigations. St James's Road will be closed from Stirling Road to St Mungo Avenue. St Mungo Avenue will be closed from Grafton Place to Taylor Place. Drivers are advised to avoid the area and seek an alternative route. Further bulletins will be issued when more info is known. We have asked Police Scotland to provide an update on the incident, more as we have it." This article is by Ben Waddle. This is in the Glasgow Times on the 30th of October 2024 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Iconic noughties band teases reunion show at Glasgow's Hydro." This article is by Ben Waddle. An iconic noughties band have teased a reunion show at Glasgow's OVO Hydro. American pop rock group the Scissor Sisters have hinted they are set to perform at the venue in the city. Revealing the potential gig, the Hydro shared a picture of the venue online with the musical group's logo. The band, who formed in 2000, haven't released an album since they were on indefinite hiatus in 2012. However, before taking a break, they released their fourth album, Magic Hour, which included tunes such as Baby Come Home, Keep Your Shoes On, Inevitable, Only the Horses, and many more. The legendary band is made up of Jake Shears, Baby Daddy, Animatronic, Del Marquis, and Randy Reel. Other songs that the group are known for include I Can't Decide, I Don't Feel Like Dancing, Take Your Mama, and Comfortably Numb. Meanwhile, the Rockers' other albums are Nightwork, Tada, and Scissor Sisters. It is unknown when and if the group will perform in the city. It comes after it be reported how a well-known rock band are set to host a gig in Glasgow to celebrate 50 years. Iron Maiden will perform at the city's OVO Hydro on Monday, June 30th, 2025, as part of their Run for Your Lives World Tour. The tour, which will begin in Budapest, marks 5 decades since Steve Harris formed the band. The iconic English band were formed in Leighton, East London in 1975. The group currently consists of Steve Harris, Dave Murray, Adrian Smith, Bruce Dickinson, Nico McBrain, and Janet Gers. This article is by Ben Waddle. This is in the Glasgow Times on the 30th of October 2024 from the news section, and the headline reads, "Person dies after incident at Motherwell train station." This article is by Ben Waddle. A person has died after an incident at a busy train station. The British Transport Police, BTP, said they were called to Motherwell railway station at around 7 a.m. on Wednesday, October 30th, following reports of a casualty on the tracks. Emergency crews, including paramedics, raced to the station. However, sadly, a person was pronounced dead at the scene. The force revealed they were not treating the incident as suspicious. A report will be prepared for the Procurator Fiscal. It comes after we reported how ScotRail said police were dealing with an incident between Motherwell and Lanark. Due to this, the rail firm said all lines in the area had been shut. Meanwhile, Network Rail said they were working with 999 teams dealing with the incident. They said services on the West Coast Main Line in both directions faced disruption due to the incident. ScotRail said the line between the two stations has since reopened. A spokesperson for the British Transport Police said officers were called to Motherwell railway station at around 7 a.m. today, October 30th, following reports of a casualty on the tracks. Paramedics also attended However, sadly, a person was pronounced dead at the scene. The incident is not being treated as suspicious, and the report will be prepared for the Procurator Fiscal. A spokesperson for ScotRail added, following the emergency services dealing with an incident earlier today between Motherwell and Lanark, all lines have now reopened. Train services between Glasgow Central and Edinburgh via Carstairs are returning to normal, but some services may still be cancelled, delayed or revised. Meanwhile, a Network Rail spokesperson said, "We're in the process of reopening the West Coast Main Line at Motherwell following a police incident earlier. Thanks for your patience if your journey has been affected this morning." The Samaritans helpline is free to call 24 hours a day on 116 123. The charity is also running a small-scale pilot web chat service. This article is by Ben Waddle.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels at Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service.